It started with a sentence. Just one. Cold. Dismissive. "You're done here." He said it like he was brushing lint off his jacket, like I was an inconvenience finally dealt with. I still remember the slight smirk curling at the edge of his lips, the condescension in his tone. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted me erased, reduced to nothing, forgotten. But here's what he didn't know. I wasn't just another name on a spreadsheet. I wasn't some junior assistant fumbling through spreadsheets or warming a seat. I was the one who knew where every thread connected, who pulled which string, and more importantly, who could unravel it all. I wasn't done. Not even close. Back then, I worked for a well-known tech consultancy. Big clients, global offices, sleek conference rooms that smelled like ambition and overpriced espresso. You know the type. I was head of special projects, meaning I was often behind the curtain, while others stood at the spotlight. Fine by me. I didn't care much for showmanship. I liked building things, fixing things, and making sure nobody could burn down what I helped create. My boss, Mark, respected that. We had a solid relationship, built on results, not handshakes. But Mark reported to a man named Leonard Hayes. Now, Leonard, he was something else. He came from old money and carried himself like he'd written the playbook on power. He believed in control through fear, not loyalty. He wore expensive suits and a permanently bored expression, like everything around him was beneath him, including people, especially people like me. Leonard didn't understand the work I did, but that didn't stop him from having an opinion on every decision we made. He would swoop into meetings late, interrupt everyone, and drop criticisms like grenades, hoping to watch us scramble. When we succeeded, he took credit. When we failed, he sharpened his knives. But here's the kicker. I wasn't just managing special projects. I was also quietly leading one of our company's most confidential internal initiatives. It was so deeply embedded into operations that even Leonard didn't know I was the architect. The initiative was called Atlas, an internal AI system designed to streamline high-stakes client decisions, financial modeling, and predictive behavior in market trends. I'd built the original prototype during nights and weekends, and when the company saw its value, they brought it in-house, but they kept me at the helm. Officially, it was being developed by a team in another division, but in reality, I was its pulse. Now, one day, out of the blue, Mark called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable, wouldn't meet my eyes. "There's talk coming from the top," he said carefully, "about eliminating redundancies. You might want to brace yourself." I stared at him. I lead 3 active projects and shadow manage. Atlas. What exactly is redundant about that? Mark looked pained. It's not about that. Leonard thinks you're too embedded, too autonomous. He doesn't like not being able to control someone. There it was. Not a performance issue. Not a failure. Just Leonard's ego. 2 weeks later, I got the summons. Leonard's assistant told me he wanted to speak. Just me. No one else. I walked into his glass-encased office, where the city stretched out behind him like he owned it. He didn't ask me to sit. He just folded his arms and said it. "You're done here." No explanation. No warning. Just dismissal. Like I was a contractor whose badge had just expired. I said nothing. Just nodded once. Not because I accepted it, but because I didn't need to fight him. He thought he was pulling the rug out from under me, but he didn't know I'd built the floor. Over the next 3 days, I quietly began shifting everything I needed to where it would matter most. I didn't take anything proprietary, nothing illegal or unethical, but what I did have were access logs, decisions, overlooked emails, and internal messages that painted a very different picture of Leonard's leadership. He had manipulated budgets, rerouted client funds to vanity projects, and even forced department heads to falsify progress reports to save his image. Things he thought would stay buried in internal servers, where only someone like me would know to look. And remember Atlas, that system that quietly analyzed everything? It had been flagging his behavior for months. But Leonard didn't even know. Atlas existed in its full form. He thought it was a glorified dashboard. The system had a pattern recognition module, one that I'd personally trained to identify risky decision-making behaviors tied to financial loss. Leonard ticked every box. I compiled everything: anonymized reports, trend analyses, and email trails. And then I sent it, not to Leonard, not to HR, but to the one person who had the power to do something real, our CEO, Helen Whitmore. Helen was sharp, practical. She didn't like drama, but she liked deception even less. I'd only spoken to her once, but I knew she cared about outcomes and integrity. And this was her company being put at risk by a man, drunk on authority. I attached a note. You once said our strength is in what we don't ignore. I hope this isn't ignored. Respectfully, someone who cares more than he's allowed to show. Then I walked away. Not from the company, just from the mess. I didn't answer Mark's calls. I didn't respond to emails. I knew the clock had started ticking. A week passed, then 2. Then, on a Monday morning when the office was unusually quiet, Helen called a surprise executive meeting. I wasn't invited, but everyone who mattered was. By 3 p.m., Leonard's nameplate was gone from his office door. By 5 p.m., 2 more directors, Leonard's closest allies, were escorted out by security. By the end of the week, an all-hands email went out thanking certain departing executives for their service and announcing renewed commitment to ethical leadership. I just watched from my desk, quietly. Then my phone rang. It was Helen. "I'd like to speak with you," she said. Her voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was curious. We met that afternoon in her office. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I know it was you," she said. "The report, the data, the framework. It wasn't just insightful, it was surgical." I waited. She leaned forward. "You could have gone public. You could have walked away. Why didn't you?" I shrugged. "Because I believe in what we're building, just not in who was trying to break it." She smiled then, a rare expression that looked almost like relief. "I want you to stay," she said. "Not in the same role. I want you to lead Atlas officially. I want transparency, and I want someone who knows what to look for when power gets corrupted. You'll report directly to me." It wasn't revenge I felt in that moment. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was clarity. Leonard had tried to erase me to protect his illusion of control. But he didn't know that control built on fear is paper thin. All it takes is one match. And I had plenty. From that day forward, things changed. The culture shifted. People no longer whispered behind doors. They spoke up. Departments began collaborating again. The toxic top layer had been peeled away, and underneath it was something real, something worth rebuilding. And me? I never used Leonard's name again. Not in meetings, not in memos. His shadow didn't deserve space in a place he nearly ruined. But every now and then, when someone talks down to a junior analyst or dismisses an engineer's idea, I gently remind them, respect everyone. You never know who built the foundation you're standing on. And when people ask about that one moment, the day I was almost fired, I smile. Because I wasn't done. I was just getting started.